Well, with all of the activities and announcements and everything, we are finally to the point of our service that everybody's here for. And I chose that song because I believe Nashwan is definitely an instrument of peace, not only in our community but in the world. And so we've been blessed to know each other and work together for over a decade now. When we started our interfaith work, when Rory was still with us, and the friendship has continued, and as problems have once again intensified, I can't think of a better partner to seek peace with. Nashwan Hamza.
Give me 1 second. You're on. Good. Can you hear me now? Thank you all very much. Thank you, Reverend Vicki, and thank you to all of you. I can't tell you how honored I am that you allowed me to come back and share with you aspects of our two faiths. And I'm honored to be with a group that includes people from all different walks of life, all different denominations, and I find out today also that you also include murderers. I have to say that, first and foremost, that I am so sorry to have heard about our brother Dan. I consider him a friend, and I know that there are few sages in the world, and for you to have had one living amongst you, you know you're truly blessed. You're truly blessed indeed. And I also want to relate to you a little reflection that I had with Dan, of the story that he told me once, that kind of encapsulates him for me. He had told me that long ago he was looking for a position, a job, and didn't know where to look, and he was looking in the paper and reading the wanted columns and the positions available. And a position said, and I believe it, he said, geological engineering. And I don't know if you know Dan's background, but he had no experience in geological engineering whatsoever. So he went ahead and decided to read a book on geological engineering. And he went ahead and interviewed. And guess what? He got the job. He read one book, and he got the job of a geological engineer. That, to me, says the power of the wisdom of this man, not only his wisdom, but his ability to be able to express and to convince others of what he truly believes. I also want to do a little quick shout out to Jan, who wrote the piece in the Californian, I believe it was. It was interesting because I went to bed as just your average Muslim guy, and I woke up to being called a scholar. And this was touching me. I can't tell you how elated I was by a family who affirmed that it was now confirmed that alternative facts are real. So, on to what I wanted to discuss with you today. I wanted to relate a story to you about a woman that I met. My wife and I were at a dinner party recently, and we ran into this woman who, after discovering I was a Muslim, expressed that she was also a Muslim, formerly, and she now had converted to atheism. So it piqued my interest, obviously, and so I asked her to explain how this transition occurred. And she told me that she had discovered that there cannot be a God if he allows followers of the faith to be able to kill one another. And she found the basis of this within the scripture of all of these faiths. And my immediate reaction, of course, as a person who studied Islam, is to want to rebut the information. I wanted to say something, but I recognized that she really needed to just express herself. So I just let her speak, and she kept talking on and on about it. She really just vented. And I recognized there was nothing I could really say at that time to convince her of anything because her mind had shut down, at least for that moment. So I assume, of course, there are many people on the planet that are in the same position. And believe it or not, the belief in God is actually a personal journey. And it has to be done actually from an inner desire to seek truth. Belief in Islam must come from study and reasoning, like so many other faiths. blind faith is actually an insult to the Creator. He had given us this mind of ours with the reasoning ability solely for the purpose of getting to know Him. This is an Islamic teaching. This woman's sentiment is unfortunately again shared by many people in the world today, and it's really understandable given that people see whatever people are seeing happening around them in the world. And because we are intrinsically lazy, most people won't take the time to actually seek the actual truth. We've all been guilty of harboring negative thoughts or feelings about an individual or a group without actually having met them. We make assumptions about people's character, and sometimes they're true, but most often they're not. And as a result, we don't want to have anything to do with them. We take the easy route and simply abandon any possible friendship because it's easier to just walk away. Reconciliation requires effort. And even more difficult, it also requires suppressing our ever-inflated egos. But what's most distressing to me today is that it's becoming more common among people of faith communities. People who themselves are questioning the traditions of their own faith and the teachings of their own clergy and the behaviors of their own individuals, the followers of the faith, are still able to label another person's religion as inherently violent. And we're not even a religion at all, discounting it altogether. All based on what they hear and see in the media and by their clergy. It's so much easier to dismiss an entire religion of 1.5 billion people than it is to take the time to actually talk to a Muslim to ask questions. Religion, unfortunately, in our culture, as you all know, is a taboo subject. And it's uncomfortable to reach out to those that we deem being different than ourselves. When it comes to the religions of Christianity and Islam, the most common misconception we see and we hear has been that they've been at odds with each other, at war with each other since the beginning. An East versus West clash of civilizations type of event. And we get this as a result of, again, years and years of being told that this is true. So what can I say to you in this short period of time that we have together? What can I say that would be most important for you as a Christian-based faith community to know regarding our two faiths? What information might also have kept that woman I met from closing down the doors of her mind? I now believe that the answer is actually not in discussing how the followers of the faith are sometimes the worst examples of the faith. We all know this. And in my experience, that doesn't really seem to convince anyone anymore, because they still walk away not knowing what the faith actually does teach. The answers, I believe, are in asking, what did God say to the Prophet Muhammad about people of other faiths? The source. And what did the Prophet himself say about them during his lifetime? If you would, let's take a short journey back in time to the late 6th century, to Mecca, which is in today's Saudi Arabia, a time where Christianity and Judaism have already been established, but not to the majority at that time. The majority there were polytheists, idol worshippers. Understand first this, though, that the religion of Islam is only the final version of God's revelation to humanity. It was revealed at a time when the majority population in Mecca were polytheistic by a man who could not even read or write. The qualities, however, that he was selected for were his moral character and the fact that he was meditating on the singular God. That's why he was selected. So, what I want to convey to you today is, to Christians, there has to be expressed these eye-opening Muslim-Christian phenomena and observations that have occurred during the Prophet's time, during the Prophet's history. The first comes after receiving his first revelation while meditating in a cave. The Prophet understandably believed he was going mad, as anyone would. He took refuge by returning home and burying himself in his wife's lap. After telling his wife about what he had heard and seen, she took it upon herself to reach out to a cousin of hers who was a Christian. He was a Christian who knew full well the teachings of the gospel, and she wanted him to listen to what Muhammad, peace be upon him, had to say. So he expressed to him what he had heard on the mount and what he heard from Angel Gabriel. And knowing what he knew, this cousin recognized that these were not the words of a madman, but rather the words of God. Observation 2. is that many of the first revelations that came in the Quran were intended not just for the ears of the pagans to be able to bring them into the faith, but rather especially for the existing Christians and Jews. Why? Not to convert them in any way, not to bring them into Islam, but because they were already familiar with the teachings, the stories, the names of the prophets, etc., to make them recognize that these new words were exactly the same as what were in their own scriptures. And to recognize the possibility that this man, Muhammad, peace be upon him, was maybe a prophet also of God. Again, Christians and Muslims, again, how they combine, how they're brought together. Observation 3. The pagan majority in Mecca did not want anything to do with this new religion. Muslims were persecuted over longer than a decade, and they were not allowed to fight back by decree of God. They were supposed to be steadfast, even though they were ridiculed, they were kicked out of their homes, and they were even killed. At one point, the Prophet, fearing for the lives of his community, actually needed to protect them. So what did he do? He decided to send them away, and he sent them to be protected in Ethiopia, under the rule of a Christian king. That Christian king was told by the pagans, don't take these Muslims in. These Muslims don't believe in what you believe. So he summoned Muhammad, and Muhammad sent an emissary over to him, and he asked, teach me about your religion. How do they feel about Jesus, peace be upon him? And when he expressed the Islamic belief of who Jesus was, he immediately recognized that this is in congruency with the Christian tradition. Again, recognition by the early Christians of the Islamic tradition as being one faith. Observation 4. Later in time, the animosity continued in Mecca, and Muhammad, fearing for his life, had to flee completely. And he went to a nearby city called Medina. And in that city, the new Muslim community was accepted. Why were they accepted? Because who lived in that community? Christians and Jewish tribes. Again, with a little time, they understood the commonalities of these faiths. And a little bit of time passed, and Muhammad, peace be upon him, became the ruler of that city. And what happened next was he decided to write what is arguably known as the first constitution, the Charter of Medina, the first constitution in history, in which all faiths, members of all faiths of that entire community were considered one, and free people within that entire community, all equal rights. So again, reaching out to create one community. And as a result, that community lived with one another, but not only did they live with one another, they also fought with one another against the Meccans, against the non-believers. Observation 5. After this new community grew to such a large extent that they finally had the numbers to be able to march back into Mecca, back to their homes, to be able to live in freedom under Islamic rule, with Muhammad, peace be upon him, as the messenger. So what he did immediately thereafter was to pen a letter. Some of you may have heard about this letter, but it is so important that I think it's important to read to you again. It's a letter written to all of Christendom. He penned it to the monks of St. Catherine's. It's a church in Messina. That's in existence today. And he penned it again to all Christians, and he read, to make them feel safe under new Muslim rule. And he said, "This is a message from Muhammad ibn Abdullah. As a covenant to those who adopt Christianity near and far, we are with them. Verily I, the servants, the helpers, and my followers defend them, because Christians are my citizens, and by Allah I hold out against anything that displeases them. No compulsion is to be on them, neither their judges to be removed from their jobs, nor their monks from their monasteries. No one is to destroy a house of their religion, to damage it, or to carry anything from it to the Muslims' houses. Should anyone take any of these, he would spoil God's covenant and disobey his prophet. Verily, they are my allies and have my secure charter against all that they hate. No one is to force them to travel or oblige them to fight. The Muslims are to fight for it. If a female Christian is married to a Muslim, it is not to take place without her approval. She is not to be prevented from visiting her church to pray. Their churches are to be respected. They are neither to be prevented from repairing them nor sacredness of their covenant. No one of the nation of Muslims is to disobey this covenant until the last day, the end of the world." I don't know of a more complete statement that a Muslim could make to a non-Muslim community that shows the solidarity and protection and what the sentiments of God through his prophet convey to him and how to treat one another. So again, what we see today happening is only a blip in history. It's a blip in time. Actually, what I'll speak about later in the second hour is I began my journey in interfaith discussions, especially post 9/11, with a depression and seeing things get worse, and they are getting worse. But at the same time, I'm seeing this congruence of positiveness, and we're going to reach a point in which the positiveness outweighs the good. I do see that now, so I am very, very much optimistic, and I'll give you my reasons why I'm speaking about this later. But in this letter, we see the mandate again of Muslims to take care of the relationships developed between these two faiths. And throughout the Prophet's life, he made statements through what is known as the Hadith, the sayings and teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. It's a 9-volume set of sayings that he had said in his teachings. And within them, he often spoke about Christendom. And I wrote down 3 of them. If I could see the slide. Is it up there? Okay, it's up there. Whoever believes there is no God but God, alone without partner, that Muhammad is his messenger, that Jesus is the servant and messenger of God, his word breathed unto Mary, and a spirit emanating from him, from God, and that paradise and hell are true, shall be received by God into heaven. He who hurts a non-Muslim citizen of a Muslim state, I am his adversary, and I shall be his adversary on the day of judgment. Both in this world and in the hereafter, I am nearest of all peoples to Jesus, peace be upon him, son of Mary. The prophets are paternal brothers, their mothers are different, but their religion is one. Again, this is just a smattering, small smattering from this entire 9-volume set of what the sentiments of Jesus, Muhammad, peace be upon him, regarding Jesus, peace be upon him, and Christianity in general. So this is an example of what the prophet thought. Let's now also understand what did God himself, the Creator himself, speak about in the Quran, the recitation to all humanity, but especially to the Muslims. What did he say about Christianity and all faiths? And I'll go to the next one. This first one is really important, but it expresses the singularity yet separateness of all faith communities. To each of you we prescribe a law and a method. Had Allah willed, he would have made you one nation, united in religion. But he intended to test you in what he has given you. So race to all that is good, to Allah as you return altogether, and he will then inform you concerning over that which you used to differ. So again, by divine decree, we are meant to have these various revealed faiths. It's not that Muslims need to convert all Christians and Jews to Islam, or vice versa. If we are told as a result of the Quran, no. I give this to a specific people at a specific time, and then it needs to be respected, it needs to be revered for them and for you, so that you can get to know them. Because truly, speaking on a personal level, I did not understand Islam completely until I started to study Christianity and Judaism. There were different chapters from the same book. And you understand the historical nature of religion, that's when you truly understand religion. Because then you see how it came down, you see the miracles, passing through all of these various faiths, through their traditions and through their prophets. So, some of these things that God, another one said would be, O people of the book, come to common terms between us and you. Reaching out again. Let there be no compulsion in religion. Truth stands out clear from error. No compulsion. You can't force anybody into a religion. We believe in the revelation which came down to us and in that which came down to you. Our God and your God is one. And to him we bow in submission. Nearest among them in love to the believers, you will find those who say we are Christian. Because amongst them are men devoted to learning and men who have renounced the Lord, and they are not arrogant. Again, speaking to the Muslim population. O people of Scripture, you have nothing of guidance till you observe the Torah and the Gospel, and that which was revealed to you from your Lord, teaching them to study their own Scriptures. Lo, those who believe in that which was revealed unto thee, Muhammad, and to those who are Jews, and Christians, and Sabians, whoever believed in Allah and the last day and does right, surely their reward is with their Lord, and no fear shall come upon them, nor shall they grieve. Again, the clarity of instruction to Muslims throughout the world, despite what we see amongst this small fraction of this 1.5 billion people, understand this to be the correct nature of how they are to behave with their Christian and Jewish brothers. Not only Christian and Jewish brothers, agnostics, atheists, everyone. So, we go forward. How did these faith groups in the coming centuries, in fact, treat one another after the passing of the prophet? Did they abide by the Creator's and the prophet's demands, or did they separate? The stories most often that we hear are stories fraught with wars against one another, and how they regarded each other as unbelievers. Even to this day, it's true. But if we take a closer look at history, if we take the time to study, we can recognize that, in fact, the majority of the time, they actually lived in harmony. And I need to give you those examples, because through those examples, we can hopefully try to emulate them. During the Muslim-led Spain, I'm sure you've all heard of this time, there was a time known as the Golden Age, in which all three monotheistic faiths not only lived in peace for centuries, but became the leaders of the world in science and in the arts. Each faith group flourished during this time. And when the Spanish conquerors later came to wipe them out during the Spanish Inquisition, what did they do? Those that survived of the Jewish and Christian and Muslim communities, they all left together and went to live under Muslim rule somewhere else. Why? Because they recognized that under Muslim rule they're going to be protected. Whereas here, even their own Christian brethren did not recognize them because they were Arab, did not recognize them as being Christian and they slaughtered them. So, again, not to state that Islam is any better than, but that to dispel the myth that Muslims do not respect people of other faiths. But here, people of other faiths recognize that under Islamic rule they were able to live in harmony. For many centuries in Palestine, we also saw faiths living in peace. Many centuries, and I emphasize that. That's until the arrival of Jewish Zionism in the early 1900s. In Bethlehem, the keys to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre were given to a Muslim family to take care of. It's not that they couldn't find a Christian worthy enough of being able to do this, but it was a sign of solidarity between the faiths. And to this day, a Muslim family still holds that key and opens it up every day for the Christian community. Again, can there be a more potent sign than one of these signs? So, we actually can see that there have been long periods in history in which these three faiths have lived and prospered together. You know that now you know what most all Muslims know and believe, that they have a God-given mandate for the continued existence of each of the revealed religions, and that the Prophet himself, peace be upon him, asked for there to be respect and understanding between these two communities. Are there verses in the Quran and the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad that contradict these rulings? Of course there are. And all have reasonable explanations for those who wish to be able to sit down, to listen, and to understand context. We have all studied, and you guys, above many other church congregations, understand that biblical scripture, the Torah, or the Quran, all have to be read in context. They were given, the specific verses were given to people at a specific time for a specific reason. So when you take it out of context, like many of us do, you see politicians, Ted Cruz and others, will say and point out to them, look, this is what the religion teaches. And the people of other faiths will go along with it. I don't know if any of you have had what I consider displeasure of listening to some Christian radio talk shows. And I mean that with no disrespect whatsoever, but I travel throughout the United States and I listen to them. And some states have an immense amount of them. You go down, punch through the list, and there's one after another after another. And the vehemence and hatred that spills out from these clergymen to the parishioners, teaching them falsehoods about Islam, it's no wonder that there's a majority sentiment negative regarding Islam amongst non-Muslims. And this is one of the jihads that we have in Islam for believers not only in the Islamic faith but also within members of other faiths who understand. So, when we have such examples in history that give us a window into a time when people's knowledge of their respective faiths was even greater than that today, and that they chose to live and thrive with one another, how can a Christian, Jew, or Muslim living today say that these people were wrong in doing so? And that we should instead separate, and that we should combat one another? What proof can we provide that can negate that we are in fact people of the same book? And that our respective faiths are but separate and wholly revered chapters in that same book. So, I I hope that the short look into our religious history and our look into the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad will enable you to at least know that Muslims have been taught to respect all peoples regardless of religion, and that it is the Creator Himself that created our different faiths, communities, so that we can get to know and love one another. May the peace and blessings of our Creator be with you all. Thank you again very, very, very much. This session, what I really wanted, again, this is a time for you. This is a time for you to be able to ask questions about things that you may have been wondering about through things you see in the media, people that you have met, things you have witnessed, maybe even Muslims that you have met and have questions about. It's a time for you to be able to ask these questions to a Muslim directly. And again, I am not a scholar. I am just your average Muslim that happens to know a tiny bit, maybe more than you do, and I'm happy to convey my opinion as to the information to convey about these. I don't know. I've been to classes, so this is one of the most informed congregations I have ever been to, so I may be even corrected in this environment here. But I have a presentation that I typically use, and what I'd like to do is go through it, and as I'm going through it, it may bring up questions for you. But again, if there's any right off the top of your head that you'd like to ask, feel free at this time, or if you want, I can just start into it.
Can everybody hear? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
How do I go to a service?
An Islamic service?
I've had interaction, just pulling in and turning my car around, and the man stopped me, and it was wonderful. And all he said was, "What is your name?" And I told him, "Gail." And I wanted to ask him, how do I come and visit? How do I come and share?
Did he answer?
No, he was eating.
Can't interrupt a Muslim while he's eating.
Just like us. We have that in common too.
I remember you mentioned food.
Yes.
There are mosques, there are places of worship are called mosques, obviously, and non-Muslims are welcome to attend mosques. It's an interesting point, before I go into that, a friend of mine is visiting Morocco right now, and she had said she occasionally will send me pictures and things. She's not allowed to go into the mosque. Non-Muslims were not allowed to go there. This is so contrary to anything I've experienced anywhere else I've gone. So I looked it up, and it turns out this is as a result of a British mandate when they were ruled by England long ago, because they didn't want the two religions to mix. They forbade Christians from being able to enter mosques. And to this day, the effect has lasted. So it has nothing to do with Muslims not wanting it. I'm surprised the Muslims themselves have not changed it, but that only in Morocco you will find that, I think.
Okay.
But other countries you can. But you can attend the mosque. We have one in Seaside here. There's also one in Salinas, as well as Capitol Hill. They're small, bless you. And the experience is different. You will find there are no pews to sit at, just the carpet, because the congregants will all line up shoulder to shoulder and then do their prayers. Prayer is really quite simple. I'm going to do a demonstration of part of one just to take the mystery out for you. But the experience may not always be pleasant. And I say this especially from a woman's perspective, because what we see and perceive is quite different than what is actually happening. In prayers, Islamic faith is really no different than historically before, where the sexes separate during the prayer service. Because again, this is a time for the congregant to be focused on the Creator, and you don't need any other distractions. And also because of the nature of the prayer, the physicality of it, which I'll describe later, also mandates that we're separate. It's very physical. So, but you can go. You're welcome to go. If you want to call, you could look up the name of the local masjid and you can go visit. I just took a group from an interfaith group that I belong to recently, and we went there, and they actually prayed with them, and then we sat afterward and had a discussion. So you
I
can
was given a prayer book, and I use it.
prayer book, yeah.
Just out of but I
Sure.
would like to be.
Sure. Well, yes.
So in terms of distraction, so it, like headscarves and stuff, I mean, is that, my understanding is that's why women have to wear headscarves and all that, because they don't want to like distract men.
Yeah, from a Western perspective, yeah. Well, actually, from a human perspective, yes, that's true. Men are pigs, I'm sorry, that's just the reality it is. And no, I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek. During the prayer service, it's mandated that the woman cover her hair. Men and women dress modestly. I can't wear clothing that's tight and expressive sexually in any way, because again, we're trying to keep our congregants all focused on one thing. When you go outside, sorry, your choice to do as you wish. Within the Islamic faith, again, remember that verse, there is no compulsion in religion for men and women. And you can abide by the customs of your community. Now again, I'm speaking as Nashwan, my views on the interpretations of the Quran and the Hadith. There will be some Muslims that stand before you and say, yes, according to Quranic teachings, that it is mandated that women cover themselves. I want to read you a verse. I just found this the other day. I thought it interesting. It kind of highlights what you're asking. Let's see. I'm going to read a verse, and that kind of highlights the covering of hair. Every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head. But every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head. It is the same as having her head shaved. For if a woman does not cover her head, she might as well have her hair cut off. But if it is a disgrace for a woman to have her hair cut off or her head shaved, then she should cover her head. It sounds really misogynistic. Okay? This is not the Quran, this is the Bible. This is Corinthians 1, 11. I only do this because I want to express, again, this is a commonality. It may not be something that we're comfortable with in our Western culture, but it is something that has historically been with our faith teachings, our common monotheistic faith teachings. And it's been a custom, and it still is a custom in many cultures in biblical areas, in the Middle East and elsewhere.
When I grew up Catholic, we wanted to cover.
There you go.
I just never, it's like, well, what's the...
Yeah, we're living in an interesting time. You've heard of all you've heard of the burkini. It's a conservative, almost like a wetsuit that women will wear to go swimming in the beach. So in France, they actually made a law banning wearing anything to cover your whole body. It's okay to go out there half naked, but it's not okay to cover your body. When you look at this, it's just an aberrancy that's unbelievable. It's a law, you cannot go there. And I remember seeing a photograph of Muslim women playing on the beach and the cop coming and taking them away, and another of nuns completely covered, frolicking in the beach, and it was okay because they were Christians. Again, this is not a reflection of our prejudice against the faith per se. This is a prejudice that we see now as a reflection of political and social pressures that we're having throughout the world, especially in Europe. The United States, we've been blessed. We're a very pluralistic nation, and we're pretty much well integrated. The Muslim community is within the fabric of American culture, so it's very hard to isolate them. Whereas in France, Germany, elsewhere, there were migrants that came later, and they were pretty much isolated. They lived in their own communities. And we're seeing not poor physically, but unfortunate French third-generation young people coming out saying, I'm fully French, but I'm being prejudiced against, much like African-American community in the United States here today. Still to this day, they are feeling the repercussions of slavery. It's just in a completely different form. It's now institutionalized. It's part of the fabric of our government. It's part of the fabric of our society. Similarly they're still having to grow out of that. So that, coupled with what's happening geopolitically in the world, where the horrific events in the Middle East that have been occurring over the last decade have forced people to flee from their homes, and they're migrating to places. And they're migrating in such numbers that make the local communities worried about the integrity and of their communities. They wouldn't think this so much had it not been for the last 15 years of warfare and the rhetoric we're hearing about Muslim versus the West, Islam, the negativisms about Islam. But again, this is a particular period in history. We had this with Jews, we had this with Italians, we had this with other minority groups throughout the world, especially here in the United States, and now no one can tell the difference anymore. And this again, over time, will hopefully happen worldwide. But it's also a dangerous time because we now have weaponry and surveillance methods now that we've never had before that can bring us to a tipping point, to the 1984 type of Orwellian type time when we no longer have freedoms like we used to be able before, for us to rise up, like this community I know have. I've met many of you at many social actions outside, window on bay, etc. There may come a time when then, you know, the dossier on Vicky's out there and somehow they're going to make her come out in the paper that she didn't pay her taxes or she didn't do such and such, and me, I'm suddenly a sleeper cell, Islamic sleeper cell in Monterey comes up because of Nashwan. I mean, you have no way of knowing if it's true or not. And if I'm sent off somewhere, how do you know? Was it true? He was such a nice guy. He spoke so eloquently. No, it could have been a sleeper cell for all we know. So the dangers that are fraught today are nothing like we used to have before. So that's why it's really imperative on us as a nation, as citizens, to rise up and say, we're not going to accept this. I hear many people saying, you know, I've got nothing to hide, what's the big deal, I can collect money. Until it comes to a point when suddenly you're part of a community or a group that can no longer speak and no longer oppose a politician or can no longer oppose a local governmental decision. And every time we want to congregate, the police come and say, no, you can't congregate. Yes, that can happen here in the United States, and we're this close to it. Every community in history didn't believe it was going to happen. Nazi Germany, they had no clue it was going to happen until the hammer fell. So we really have to be careful. I'm sorry, I went on and on about something, but hopefully that kind of answered your question.
More than answering.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all good.
So, if I could, let's go to the first slide. I want to talk to you about the next one.
Did we say that right?
You did. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. You guys did that. Very good. And again, this slide emphasizes the commonality. The shalom alaikum in Hebrew, peace be with you in church, the commonalities of these faiths. Next one, please. So, Muslim. What is a Muslim? A Muslim is a follower, obviously, of the Islamic faith. But it is, I like to point out that it's more generic than that. A Muslim literally means in Arabic, one who submits to the will of God. Submit to the will of God. It's an adjective. Any of you submit to the will of God in the way that you have known. My friends who are atheists submit to the will of God in the way that they have known. That may sound aberrant. How can an atheist submit to the will of God? You don't necessarily submit to the will of God by acknowledging the existence of God. We treat one another a certain way. We are loving to our families. We go to work, raise money to be able to provide, etc., take care of orphans. All of these are submitted to the will of God. But this is actually the instructions. The concept of God is only a gateway to opening a book with instructions that helps guide us into how to behave as human beings. That's the whole purpose of this. God, as I stated earlier, clearly doesn't care which path we take as long as we're following it. A true Muslim doesn't care if others are converted to Islam. They just want others, monotheistic individuals who believe in God, to actually follow the faith that they profess to follow. Open it up, open the book and see what your Creator asked you to do and follow that. We're completely comfortable with that because we know within that book it says the exact same thing as what it says in the Quran. So I don't care if it's labeled Bible, Torah, anything, doesn't really matter, as long as we truly follow it. So again, it's a generic word for everyone who follows. And then the next, sorry.
Just clarifying, because it's clear about people of the book that you often add in any other religion. Is that in the Quran too, or that wasn't timely in terms of context? So
I think so, because the Quran was speaking to monotheists. Well,
okay.
God, peace be upon him, God was speaking to all of humanity, polytheists especially, those who did not know of him to come to understand him.
Okay.
I don't know enough information about God speaking about other faiths other than monotheistic faiths. I'm sorry. It may happen, but I don't have the knowledge.
Next one.
Yes, please. So Islam is the name of the religion. We have Christianity and Christian. We don't have Islam and Islamist. We have a different word for it. But Islam is the actual name of the religion given to us by God. He said, make this your religion. And Islam literally means, it comes from the word peace, the root word peace. And it's peace through submission. So peace through submission. Again, this is ironic to many Americans today, many people around the world today. How could this be a religion of peace when we are witnessing followers of that religion behaving so poorly? You know, and ad nauseum, I keep saying, as Gandhi, peace be upon him, says, when he was asked, you know, what do you like most about Christianity? And he said, Christ. He said, what do you like least about Christianity? He said, Christians. It's not picking on Christianity. It's an understanding that the followers of the faith are usually the worst representatives of that particular faith. And Islam is no different. It's no different at all. And so submission to the will of God by following a set of instructions given to him, whether it be the Torah, whether it be the Bible, the Hindu teachings, whatever it may be. Go ahead and follow those teachings to lead towards understanding of God. We only have a limited amount of time on this planet. We're living in 2017. How am I supposed to know which religion to pick? Other than the fact that I'm born into this particular religious family, does that automatically make me a Muslim? Or why can't I be a Jew? Why can't I be a Buddhist, etc.? And I can be. You know, when you reach a certain level of understanding, it's fluid. And it doesn't take a whole lot of reading in the Quran, as I've just showed you, that it's almost emphasized that you better look into it in order for me to know that you're my brother and sister. So the fluidness of it needs to happen. We hear about Islam being the fastest growing religion on earth, probably, in reality today. Probably because we propagate more than we should, probably. I wish it was because, and many non-Muslims are converting to Islam. That's a fact. But it's not really heartwarming to me unless I understand that it's the majority of people that are becoming Muslims. It's growing because people are understanding. I don't want someone to leave a particular faith to join Islam. I would rather have them follow that particular faith that they understand. But I have no problem in saying I'm a Jew, because the teachings that I have are part of the Torah. I have no problem in saying that I'm a Christian, because again, it's similarly the same thing. Or the teachings of Buddha are completely congruent with the Islamic teachings. Completely. Some scholars believe that he was actually a prophet. We just don't know because it wasn't part of our scripture to tell us. We've been told within the hadith, the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, that there have been over 124,000 prophets throughout time. 124,000. And it makes sense. Throughout time there have been people throughout parts of the world that needed to hear about the Creator. And as a result, we needed to have them. And the only ones we do know of are the ones that are written in Scripture. Any questions? Yes.
It's an odd one, and it may, whatever.
I love odd ones. I really do.
So, I remember, I think it was in the 80s, Cat Stevens became Islamic or Muslim, and it was a huge, the world went ape shit.
Yeah.
Lack of a word.
Technical term, I know that.
And like they banded him to come back into the United States to see his daughter. Right.
Yeah.
And so we have this, that's all I know, really, of Muslim or Islam, is the judgment of Americans against the Islamic Muslim community.
Right.
And so I don't know if there's really a question in that, but it's just, and I feel kind of like a lot of people do that. Like, well, Cat Stevens, and he changed his name, and he's one of them.
Yeah.
He's one of them, and I think that's where we are as a society politically.
Yeah.
And one of them, redneck. Oh, one of them.
Correct.
And so we're just putting everybody in a box.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you don't belong with me. And yet, what is the Bible of all teaching, of all of it? We are one. We are one. We are one. We are brothers and sisters. And I have pink hair, and people might go, ooh, she's weird, she's odd, she's in a box. And, so...
But you are.
And so it's like, I wish more people had higher self, the higher self of the brain, of the higher id of self.
I'm glad you recognize that.
To just get past the stupidity that we are human.
And the only way to get past this is to seek knowledge. The easiest way is just to ask somebody. You don't have to crack open a book. Hopefully you find someone, any Muslim really should know the basics of their faith, and ask them, is this true what I'm seeing? And they should be able to answer. And if they don't, ask someone else. That's the easiest way to find out. And then of course, if you don't believe them or want to confirm it, then look up scholarly work. That's another problem we have, scholarly work. Google now is an amazing tool, there's no doubt. But I am so terrified for this new generation because it's no longer going to the library and looking up scholarly works that are from scholars. You now have opinions out there as scholarship, including my stupid opinions are out there as well. And people will read them. But the majority, you type in, is Islam, ... and you just leave it that way. And you get page after page after page after falsities regarding Islam. So how is a student supposed to research jihad or research any aspect of Islam without getting all of the negativisms first? It's virtually impossible as a student because you don't know what's truth versus not. I'm fooled many times. I'll read something and it looks pretty valid and it's very scholarly, it has references, etc. All of a sudden I'll catch things. And I'll go, what's going on? And then I research the organization that puts it forth, and sure enough, it's one of the Islamic folk.
That's the beginning of what we're trying to teach kids.
Yeah.
Being an ex-educator, is to dig deeper into who put it there first. And then if it's a little, now you look further into who put it there as opposed to what the subject area is. And then you can start, we hope that they can start differentiating.
I hope they do it, because if they don't, they're another example of the next generation growing up with that same mentality, the Cat Stevens mentality. Oh, it's them versus us.
Why isn't he allowed into the country?
Political, completely political. You see, we're living at a time, I mean, it's clear that there is a war against Islamic Muslims at this point. I would think you guys would see this. It's not literal in the sense, well, it is literal fighting over there. Our bombs are dropping on innocent people. And in the name of, in our name, yeah, we don't put up a flag of Christendom and say this is a crusade. We don't have to because we're powerful. But the fact is we are a Christian nation, a majority Christian nation, and we are doing these things in the name of Americans who are predominantly Christian. So is this a Christian act? Is this acceptable anywhere within the Bible to be able to perform these things? No, it's not. But nobody wants to look at this. We accept it because we believe they're against us. They want to attack us. As long as I feed you that information, you're willing to go along with it and go ahead and continue to pay your taxes. So, Cat Stevens, I love the guy. And many of his albums from before. He's a representative of Islam.
British though, right?
He's British.
But that's why they can stop. He's not an American citizen.
Yes, and as soon as he's on some no-fly list, that's it. And there are so many that are on no-fly lists.
Especially
I can give you horror stories. I mean, even in my life, not a horror story, but I'll tell you something about what happened to me traveling sometimes. Sorry. Yes.
Since Islam is a religion of peace and love, why is it we don't hear more objection following some terrorist attack that is obviously or has been deemed definitely was done by radical Muslims? And it seems like the Muslim community just remains silent.
They don't.
Which, to a lot of people, thinks they approve.
Right. You get that notion because we're not exposed to anyone saying it, right? In other words, when we open the paper, we don't see it very often. This Muslim community, etc., does not condone the actions of these Muslims. The reality is, almost every single Islamic organization in the world has condemned violence and condemned terrorism. We don't hear it because that's not who I, as a journalist, want to stick out there.
Yeah.
If I've got a choice of, Islamic Networks Group condemns this act, or this various mosque organizations collectively condemn these various acts, versus Muslim guy bombs, bus on, the streets of Jerusalem. What am I going to put forth? I'm going to put this one forth. Not because, number one, this is sexier, but number two, there are also powers behind me that say I want to push this agenda. Who are these? you have to start to peel the onion layers back. You go follow the money in essence, follow the motivations, and we will find them. I know this is, Mike's just saying it doesn't validate it completely in your mind, but the reality is there are websites that are devoted to this. There is no one voice for Islam like there is for Catholicism, for example, where you have a pope and bishops, etc. Islam is structured very, very differently, so you have to ask opinions from various scholars and sources throughout the world, and the vast majority are condemning it, condemning it, condemning it. Does that mean there isn't a mosque with an imam spewing this venom? Of course there are. Just like there, Frank Gaffney is doing it in Texas, or I don't know where he's from, he's doing the exact same thing. So we have these amongst our flock, but the reality is, and I'm telling you in earnest, that the vast majority of Muslims condemn it because, again, within the Quran it states that it's illegal.
And I would say, I see those, I look for them, and I look for responses, and there are lots of responses and frustration in the Islamic community that it doesn't get publicized.
But we do understand. We do understand why the sentiment exists, and it's a reality. It's just the way we are fed news, and that news just happens to not come up.
Could you not feed your own news, put out some thoughts out there or something? Because I mean, I know it's a stupid question, but it seems like that I don't see, I feel it, but I'd love my friends to see it and feel it, because...
You're doing yourself a disservice by not putting it out there.
Well, I don't see it. I don't know, maybe see or see
That's the reality, yeah.
But if I had, I would put it out there, but I don't know
I'll start
where to find
sending it. I'll send it to you, because I find it all the
I'm
time.
happy to do that.
It is out there,
I'm
but
sure
it's
it
not
is.
in mainstream because the major outlets
No,
are not owned by...
I believe that, but I would like to begin making it mainstream.
Yeah, I just got an email yesterday from another local minister, and he has somebody in the parish that started spewing misconceptions about Islam, and he asked me what my opinion was. I was hoping that he might come, and I'm praying that he might come, just so I can have the opportunity to speak.
One of the things you can do is sign up for CAIR, K-A-I-R. I get their emails all the time, and it's the national, as close to a national spokespeople, and so that's probably why I get it, because I get that newsletter, like weekly, and they always talk about it, and they condemn things that are going on, and they talk about all the people that have come together to condemn these different things and such. So you have to look to the way they do have media. They're trying to put it out there, and so it's up to us to also go look for it. And so if you sign up to some sites or newsletters from Islamic organizations, then you'll see what they're doing. Just like we talk about, we need to do that amongst conservative and liberal news organizations. So, it's out there. It's just, and then we can share it so that people know that generally the mosques and such do condemn it.
I'd also like to remind the community, and Nashwan and I had a little conversation about that while we need to be concerned nationally and internationally, most of us are able to act locally, or maybe only able to act locally. And we have here a county that needs education, and we can be part of that educating. And every fall, the community takes upon itself some sort of interfaith, some sort of mission to improve interfaith understanding. And we haven't started working on that yet. Dan was always part of that, so we get to do it without Dan for the first time in a decade. But maybe this is a glorious topic, and while we can hope for all the things and work for all the things that Marianne is talking about, we also can act locally. And I would encourage all of you to take that into your heart and think about that. Can you be part of acting locally to increase understanding?
There's also, and I'll give you 1 second. Muslims are also asking, why is it that I, as a Muslim, have to refute everything that some wacko has to do, in the name of my faith? When I don't see Christians jumping up and down when Timothy McVeigh decides to blow up the building, and you have to make excuses for Christianity, or any number of, if you look at all of the terrorist acts in the United States, the FBI's dossier of terrorist acts, very few were committed by Muslims. The vast majority are right-wing, white supremacist groups, Christian-based groups. But again, Christian groups aren't rising up and saying, we apologize for this, we condemn this.
We protested before we went into Iraq. There were protests all over the United States.
The whole world did. The whole world did. That's a pivotal moment in history, actually.
But
You're
they're
right.
all Islamic terrorists.
Correct.
They're not called Christian terrorists.
All of these things lead to us believing that it is part of the religion. And it's understandable why if I was a non-Muslim, that's exactly what I would probably be believing and asking these very same questions. It's completely justified. But slowly but surely we are getting the word out that this has nothing to do with Islam. Yes, sir, back there.
Just a few moments ago, I think what we were asking is a reliable source online. So is it KAIR.org?
CAIR. CAIR. Council on American Islamic Relations. CAIR. And they're as close to being the spokesperson, the spokespeople for Muslims in the United States. They're a phenomenal
And you
organization.
can get on and receive their, like, newscast. I mean, I get it in my folder,
Every day.
in my Gmail, every day. There's
Yeah.
something from CARE.
Right. And it lists all of the hate crimes that are happening throughout the United States. Horrific stuff.
That's something we also don't hear, is how many mosques in the United States are having problems all the time. And we don't hear that in our news either.
13 alone in Texas last year.
Wow.
13 in Texas.
And as a follow-up to that, is there any syndicate news other than BBC that might be more open or aware?
I recommend, believe it or not, Al Jazeera.
Right.
I also recommend Democracy Now! Democracy Now! Amy Goodman and Democracy Now! hits all of these various points. And those two, I think, in themselves will probably be enough to help you, at least guide you. Yeah, sure.
My slides are not working, so.
Oh, it's okay. I've memorized them by now.
Well, this is changing the subject a little bit, but I'm just curious to understand the Sunni Shiite
Yeah.
issue. And
Like Christianity, that has many sects, Islam also has sects as well. S-E-C-T, yes. We also have the other kind, but and the majority of Muslims consider themselves to be Sunni, which is meaning basically followers of the Prophet, the teachings and sayings of the Prophet, emulating the Prophet. That's 90+% of the entire Muslim, 1.5 billion Muslims. A smaller majority are the Shiite sect, which are predominantly in Iran, Iraq, and smattering in Lebanon, elsewhere. And the differentiation between the two, both of them will acknowledge that the Quran is the basis for their religion, and they accept all of the tenets of Islam, which I'll get into, and practice it exactly the same way. It's in accordance to who has authority to speak after the passing of the Prophet. Who has the, after the passing of the Prophet, there were disciples, in essence, that were selected. One first, and then after he passed, the next one, etc., etc. And they believed that this individual should have been the disciple, whereas the majority selected this person. And then a little bit of history happened, someone was killed, one of the disciples was killed, and a rift occurred at that time. And to this day, that rift exists. Unfortunately, it is you can see it's a governmental, political rift, not religious. Now, I need to emphasize this. What we're hearing on the news is that this rift is a chasm, it's huge, and that they're fighting against each other. And unfortunately, they are. Now, before the invasion of Iraq, I happen to be Iraqi. I was born in the Middle East. I was born in Iraq. And my parents described to me a time in which a husband and wife don't know which if your wife is Shia or if you're Sunni, you know obviously what you are, but you don't know if your wife is or not. Until you go down to get a marriage license and say, oh, by the way, what are you? You got to fill it out here. So they lived with one another I wouldn't say complete harmony. They had differences like Catholicism and Protestantism, that kind of difference, but it wasn't overt. Families knew each other, it wasn't outside and hateful in any way. But after our invasion, we separated them, and we had Shia militias fighting against Sunnis in Iraq. Well, as soon as you kill my father or my brother or my sister, I now have a vendetta against you. And that escalates and escalates and escalates to what we have today. And it's spreading. It's now spreading to the point of this disease that we call ISIS, which is really the birth child of our invasion of Iraq. And because we have individuals that are devoid of education, devoid of an ability to sustain their lives through any livelihood because their economies have collapsed. To hurt an individual or kill someone even pales by comparison to destroying a country, to destroying the infrastructure of a country. Any of our religions will tell us that society is the most trumps any individual needs. because the society needs to stay together in order to be able to foster an environment to understand the Creator. So we need this peace. So what we did in Iraq is we destroyed it, and then we created these factions. ISIS grew from it to the point where they believe, they have no knowledge really, very limited of them have a knowledge that is warped of Islam. Because they too, like their Christian brethren, have taken verses from the Quran and warped them to their own individual needs. And everybody's going to rise up if it becomes a religious war, so they get everybody on board. But they started killing their own brethren. They're killing their own, if you don't align yourselves with us or believe in Islam the way we do, if you're Shia, they're killed. This is a filthy aberration that has completely contrary to Islam. And everyone, the gentleman left, but every one of the scholars and imams of the world will tell you this is an aberration. And we wish it was gone. But unfortunately, we have to deal with it today. I hope that answers the question. Yes?
So ISIS and Saudi Arabia are very similar with their teachings. Yeah. What's it called again?
Wahhabism.
Yeah, that's right.
And Wahhabism was born in Saudi Arabia with a particular family. And they aligned themselves with the political, they had a particular vision, very much like a fundamentalist version of Christianity, where the Bible is literal, it's taken literally, rather than some parts are allegorical, some parts are, intended for certain people, etc. They have done the same thing with Islam and the Quran. So everything to the letter. Now, some of these things, again, were intended for a particular time, a particular place, for particular people that were punishing people in a certain way.
Right.
So Wahhabism grew out of that. It's, again, a scourge on the Islamic world, in my opinion. And it rapidly grew worldwide because of petrodollars. Because of our need for oil, we boosted up the Saudi government, and they were able to spread. They put out billions of dollars to build mosques throughout the United States. Billions of dollars. I know even here they tried to go ahead and influence us in the Monterey Peninsula, because I remember meeting with some Saudi officials back then. And so as a result, we now have this psychosis spread, this method of looking at Islam has spread, but we are combating. The beauty of the United States is that we are free to express and study religion in the way that we wish. That is truly a blessing. Right now. I don't know how long that's going to last, but right now that's the case. And we have a limited amount of time in which to allow scholars to grow and develop within the United States. We have done that. The first university, Islamic University, is now in Berkeley, associated with Berkeley, Zaytuna College up there. And it's an accredited university with scholars that are there. If you Google Islamic scholars, there are so many that are homegrown, speak English better than I do, and have knowledge of Islam going back to the time that I was describing to you before. Ironically, Muslims had scholars back then with documents and books that they had to refer to that have not, they're existing, but they're lost as far as research to the average Muslim. So that was lost since the colonial period, when the Muslim lands were taken over by Britain, France, etc. They kind of dropped that and went to Western type thinking and made it nationalistic countries rather than religious-based countries, where all, regardless of nationality, where you came from, you were all considered one community. Then they went to a nationalism. Well, this is Iraq, this is Syria, this is Jordan, etc. And they separated on those bases. And the Wahhabist mentality took hold at that time. So we're now slowly trying to overcome
It demonstrates how powerful so much of it is political and economic. The fact that we're so anti, terrorism supposedly, and yet Saudi Arabia we embrace because of the economic ties. And so those countries weren't divided by the tribal areas. They were split up by the colonialists. Britain went in and said, well, we're going to cut down here and carve out here, and that's why you have Kurds in some areas that are included in a country that wasn't who they were, and all of that.
What sect is the Taliban? Who are they? I mean,
I don't know what they would say, but I would pretty much think that they would definitely be some.
And they were through the topic, right?
they're super strict.
Yeah, again, the fundamentalist views.
They came out of Saudi Arabia.
This notion of stoning people, of beheadings and all of this stuff, this is such an aberration, thank you, in Islam, that if you look at the historical records of Muslims after the Prophet, peace be upon him, for century after century after century, up until maybe the colonial era. I think the recorded history shows 3 times in which that type of law was that kind of punishment was dished out. 3 in centuries worth of time. And since then, we've now had countless from ignorant people who are going back to a time in which that was the common way, whether you were a Muslim or not, of dealing with criminal acts. That was, and even back then it was only if in the extreme situation that something like this would happen.
It's a way to control people, though.
Exactly. It really, you have to study Islamic jurisprudence and law to understand the complexities of it. It's very much like our legal system here. You have to kind of trust in what I'm telling you, in that it is not a common understanding amongst Muslim scholars that this is an accepted form of punishment. It wouldn't be the case. So, sorry.
You mentioned somebody behind you?
Yeah, but go ahead.
Oh, she mentioned the Kurds. Am I correct in understanding that the Kurds are thinking at this point of becoming their own, I don't know what word to use, state, and separating from the other two to try to bring, I don't know what their motive is? Is it to try to bring peace amongst that own group, invite others in, or is it just to, I don't understand what that's about.
I happen to be Kurdish, half Kurdish. My father's Kurdish, my mother is Iraqi. And the Kurds are a completely different nationality, genetic makeup, different language than the Arabs. And they happen to comprise a region of 4 countries, Iraq being one of them. And in the region of Iraq, where I came from, they have been taxation without representation type of situation, where they were part of the citizenship of Iraq, but they weren't represented. So they always wanted to be independent, especially since they would uprise and Saddam would commit horrific acts against them. So since that time, they've been wanting to be autonomous. The division occurred, again, as Vicky said, not because of any rationale. They just drew a line, and you're Iraqi, regardless of who's in it and who's not. But in the old days, I mean, you had regions separated by rivers, separated by mountains, where peoples differentiated. That's the logical place if you're going to draw a line to draw. So you coupled peoples that typically should not have been coupled together. So that's the reason. It's completely politically motivated. They're not wanting to create peace. They want autonomy for themselves so that they can live in peace. And similarly in Turkey.
You think that's a good thing, or that's a good thing?
It's a human thing. You know, it's sometimes we just have to look at things non-politically. I think it's best, actually.
Considering in the Middle East they don't have a whole history and such a democracy where different peoples are represented, and they tend to, the party in power tends to discriminate against everybody else. It becomes very understandable why this group wants to have...
The foreign minister, I think, has some ties to the United States.
Yes.
And what
No,
happened.
Israel, believe it or not,
And he's bringing in democratic ideas in that area?
Yeah,
or-
I mean, it's prospering. There's no doubt.
Yeah,
The area is prospering, and all the power to them. I would rather see less lines on the planet, you know, for divisions of countries. Because if you look at the world maps historically, there were very few, and then more and more and more. Dividing us, again, into nationalities rather than the commonalities of culture or religion. Yes?
No, on that note, I mean, I could be wrong, but I mean, a lot of this seems to go back to that colonial times, and so some of this is pushback against all of that, but also with these delineations, like you're saying, I mean, I lived in Uganda for a couple of years, and there's 64 different tribes in Uganda, and they don't all get along together, but those lines were drawn by foreigners, you know, who knew nothing about how that worked.
Correct.
So, I mean, you know, like you said, some of it is human nature in terms of, you know, we kind of like read a book about saving the soul of Iran, and some of it seemed, the initial beginning of all of this violence and stuff seemed to be based on wanting to preserve their culture, which I can understand that, you know, they're proud of their roots and they don't want it to be.
Any one of us would want to protect what we hold dear, right? Whether it's our families, whether it's our country, whether it's our culture. I even empathize with, believe it or not, I don't want to use the word white supremacy, but a white culture. I know it may sound aberrant coming from out of my lips, but we all grow up a certain way and with certain expectations and comforts with what culture we have around us. This is actually divine. I mean, we all were created. We have Chinese, we have Black, we have all of these various cultures that were created by the Creator to differentiate so that we get to know one another, as it states in the Quran. So a majority white community expects with a certain language and a certain way of living suddenly sees itself being attacked or infiltrated by foreigners or people that do not look the same, do not speak the same, have a different culture, especially suddenly when they're seeing how they behave overseas. Oh my God, they're going to bring that thing here. It's understandable why we would revolt. I think I would probably do the same thing if I didn't understand. So we have to be sensitive to what I'm at least now more sensitive to their ideas, and I can speak to that a certain way with that understanding. Say, I understand where you're coming from. However, let's take a look at it from this point of view, that these people aren't, number one, those don't represent the vast majority, and we are here with you. We're already amongst you to protect you and in solidarity with you. We are all citizens of this nation together, and that you don't need to be afraid in essence. So what we need to focus on, I think, is understand that the aberrance, that what we're seeing, witnessing worldwide, especially within the Islamic world now, is an aberrancy. It's not a normal time in history. It's an aberrancy with regard to what the religion teaches. So we have to ask ourselves, so what does the religion teach? Let's focus on that, so you in essence could be emissaries for me, for the Islamic community to say, you know what, I heard you saying what you're saying, but I hear that it's untrue, and let's go find out together what the truth actually is.
It's also that we don't remember our history, because even the whole Iran, how many of us remember that the whole reason Iran in the United States is because we installed the Shah, who was this dictator over them, and they wanted to choose their own leader, and and we've done that a lot of places around the world, and so understandably people react to the United States imposing our will, and I think a whole lot of this is the aftermath of colonialism, and it's blowing up now, and it was all kept all neat, and now it's, people are discovering and wanting their own independence and freedom, and it's messy.
I've learned a lot today from you. Thank you for that. But it seems that one of the most powerful messages I'm going to take from today is the similarities between the Quran and the Torah and the Bible, and between our faiths. And it just feels like if we spend a lot more time talking about the similarities and what we believe in a God, whatever name you give it, that would be a great benefit. I don't understand why we spend so much time on our differences, because they seem to be minimal especially after I learned today. But I think that is something that I'll take from today. It's just concentrate on the similarities and how much we have in common. So I think that's an important thing.
I agree with you. And if you don't mind, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, a great awakening for our community was to know that there's an Easter story and a Christmas story in the Quran. And they're beautiful and slightly, different from ours, but they're there. And that they honor Jesus as, what I always tell people when they're, is that Jesus, the Quran says Jesus is going to come back at the end day and decide who, make the judgment and such. So he's totally intertwined into the Quran.
Jesus wasn't necessarily born in a manger. He could have been born under a palm tree.
Right. That was great that we did. I think we want to repeat that. Yeah. We did a whole nativity scene, in essence, on the Islamic version. Right, with the palm tree. With regard to how Muslims in the Quran views Jesus, peace be upon him, and his birth. Starting from Mary, which I believe Michelle played.
Yes, Michelle.
Michelle did,
Yeah, and I'd like to do that again someday.
Yeah.
But that's the factor of, or the point of Jesus, peace be upon him, is one area definitely of difference. I mean, within the Quran, all of the prophets are to be respected. As I stated, that one thing, the one that is closest to me is Jesus, peace be upon him, speaking, Muhammad speaking. And we are brothers of different mothers, but our religion is one. So, what are the differences in between Islam and Christianity with regards to this special individual? Muslims also believe, obviously one entire chapter in the Quran is devoted to Mary. Out of the 114, the entire chapter is for her, regardless of all of the other smatterings of the speaking of Jesus and Mary throughout the rest of the Quran. But this entire chapter is devoted to how she was inspired to be given the spirit of Jesus, peace be upon him, to be an inspiration for the world, and that he would come to the world. And Muslims believe that he was the Messiah, the one to become. That he was born of a virgin. that he raised the dead, that he healed the sick, that one day again, as Vicky said, he will come. Not Muhammad, peace be upon him, but Jesus will come to reign over the earth. All Muslims believe all of this. The contention becomes to the point where you equate him suddenly with God, that he is God's son. Muslims are told within the Quran that there's no duality in God, the Creator, and that God is only one, and it's best for you to not elevate Jesus to that level. This is a human concept that we believe came long after Jesus' passing. Jesus never really said it, peace be upon him himself.
And that's not an element of unity either,
Yeah,
so.
similar there. So, but the differences versus similarities issue is an important one in the sense that, yes, we see that there are 99% similarities and this 1% difference. But to many Christians, that 1% encompasses 99% of their faith.
Right.
So how do I you got to place value on things. If you don't believe in Jesus, peace be upon him, as your Savior in life, and you will not enter into heaven. And I can't take that away from them. All I can do is point to the scriptures, of the Islamic scriptures, and say this is the rationale as to what is told why that would be incorrect.
But what you say the Quran teaches is even that it's okay for you,
Yes.
for Christians to follow that.
Yes.
It's not telling Christians they shouldn't
Correct.
believe that.
It tells Christians it's better for you if you don't.
Right.
Don't say that. And it definitely chastises Christians for believing that and telling them to change. But it doesn't negate Christianity. It doesn't stop you from being able to practice your faith.
So we're very much into the intricacies of these things, as you've expressed. But again, if we just go back to goodness and kindness,
Yes.
those are the things that have to be featured. And what happened 10,000 years ago, and your interpretation and mine may differ. But that's not what
Golden rule.
that's not where we're living today.
Yeah. I don't know if it was up there today. The prophet said, if you are kind to your neighbor, you're a believer. If you want for your neighbor what you want for yourself, you're a Muslim. So there's a differentiation there. Just being kind is not really enough. But to really give you what I would have taken from myself, that takes an extra level of understanding.
That's the will of God.
Yes, exactly. Selfless. Many of us don't know what the differences are. What do Muslims actually believe? So quickly, if I can list them for you. The belief in God, obviously, primarily. The singular God, the creator of all of humanity and the universe. And this omnipotent God of ours is not something we can conceptualize, but it comes in various levels, to the point of Dan, God and I are no different. We're not separate. And within Islam, we also have various understandings and scholarship to the point of Sufism, you may have heard of within Islam, is a very spiritual understanding rather than dogmatic understanding of the religion, and the connection of God's spirit within ourselves and within our community. That's emphasized. So the belief in God is one. The belief in angels. Muslims believe in angels. They're the intermediaries between the Creator and humanity. Angel Gabriel, the more famous of them. Then we have had prophets. Again, over 124,000 of them, but the ones we do know of are the ones that are listed in all of our texts. Adam, Noah, Jesus, Jacob, Isaac, Muhammad, Jesus, peace be upon him. All of them are considered to be prophets within the Islamic faith. Every single one, and revered identically. Revered identically. They all have their differences. They all have their differentiations and uniquenesses. Jesus, as I said, peace be upon him, has that distinction of having been born like Adam, without a mother. Without a father. Just created. Why, I don't know. To this day, I haven't had a scholar, define that for me yet, as to why that differentiation occurred, but we honor that. I think no other religion honors Jesus, peace be upon him, the way Islam, other than Christianity, other than Islam does. If you read the text, it's clear. So from some of those prophets we have, thank you. Some of those prophets have given us religious texts, guidances, the Torah, going back to the scrolls of Abraham, the Gospel to Jesus, the Torah to Moses, the Psalms to David, the Quran to the Muslims, to Muhammad, peace be upon them all. All of these are, again, in their original form, it's the big asterisk, considered to be holy books within the Islamic faith and need to be revered. Now, we don't have them in their original form, many of these. We have the Psalms, definitely. We have, I think, the Scrolls, and then the Quran. But the rest have been abrogated. They've been changed. We all know that through Christian scholarship and Jewish scholarship. But it's what we have today. So as a Muslim, if I read it, it's still very clear to me that the commonalities between them. I see differences, and I don't consider it as a Muslim. We're not allowed to consider it as the Word of God because of these abrogations. If I have an autobiography, that's one thing. If someone writes a biography about me, that's not my words. Those are his words about me. So we don't have the words of Jesus, peace be upon him. We don't have the words exactly of Moses, peace be upon him. But fortunately, we do have the Quran. Why do we know it's the exact same? Because it's the baby of all these faiths. It's only 1,400 plus years old. And we have 5 in existence that existed during the time of the Prophet. So we know that they're accurate, only because of time. So, but as a human being, again, living in 2017, what do I do? How do I know how to differentiate? Well, I let my ego aside, and I just say I'm a child of the planet. I'm going to read them all and make up my own mind. I don't have to necessarily even pick one or the other. The only reason I do is because I need a community. I need to follow something. I need some dogma in my life in order to make me get up and go pray, and make me get up and go to charity. You know, I'm frail like all humans are. So when we have a community to push us, and we have teachings to guide us, then we will move forward. Whereas if I just say I'm spiritual, which I understand the majority of people now in our kids' generation are feeling alienated, understandably, from any faith, let alone be the monotheistic faith based on what they see. But they still have a sense of spirituality, which really, what does that mean to me? And what I'm hearing is that God light is still there. And this is something we've all been given. We're all going to at some point ask, what the heck is this all about? Why did my mother die? Why am I losing my job? Why? And why is God allowing this to happen? If there is a God, those questions need to be answered. And in order to answer them, you've got to move from this plane of thinking to the next higher plane. And all prayer does in Islam is help move you from this to this. We need to get us into this plane more often. The more often we are in this plane, the more likelihood we'll understand life better. I'm going to treat you better because I know that's, not because I'm told to, but because I know it to be right. Muhammad, peace be upon him, had a night journey. I don't know if you guys know this story. And he went and met Moses. And he met God. And God told him to go back to his people and have them pray 50 times a day. So God came back, and they said, no way, we're not going to pray 50 times a day. So he went back and said, God, they can't do 50 times a day. So, okay, 25. I'm making these numbers up. I don't remember the second number. I remember 50 for sure. 25. He goes back again. Muslims say, no way. He goes back again. No, can't do 25. He goes 5. Eventually came down to 5. He went back. He said, I'm not going to go back and ask for... Muslims even said, no, that's too much. I'm not going to go back again. I'm too embarrassed to go back to God and ask for less than 5. But try to understand, what we're told now is that even the 5 prayers are still equal to the 50 had we done 50. And what's the point of praying 5 times a day? We're looking at it wrong. We're looking at it as if this is something I'm giving. All I'm doing is moving my brain from this to a higher plane so that I can see better. It's a time of respite. It's a time of rest. I'm sorry, I'm suddenly hearing myself. I'm talking way too much. I apologize. But it's really a chance for individuals, for human beings, to take a break. To take a break from the dunya, what we call dunya in Islam, the material world. Because that is so distractive. My family, my job, that's all my brain thinks of, even my sleep, for Pete's sake. So 5 times a day, if I'm able to take a break and move to that, those synapses in the brain, those neurons form. So every time I see something, I'll think of God. Everything. Instruction in the Middle East, when you have Islamic schools, they teach science, they teach math, they teach everything with relation to God. Everything is connected. And as a result, the child grows up with that connection and understanding. So it's not just the material world that's important. This is something to be cherished and enjoyed, but with the understanding that it's temporary. That it's a test, purely, in essence, for us. Am I making sense?
Yeah. It fits our whole meditation practice. We do exactly the same thing.
Yes, sir.
The other one is, I think that you mentioned earlier about misogyny, and again, this is my own ignorance, is that the perception that the Islam faith has an awkward perception of women. And maybe you could just help me understand that.
Sure. And you're right. looking at it through Western eyes, through the benefit of having had centuries of progress with regards to women's rights, it looks that way. And what we're looking at is the behavior of Muslims in a small part of the world. Remember, of the 1.5 billion Muslims, the Arab population comprises about 15%. 15% of 1.5 billion people speak the language of the Quran. The vast majority are saying, hey, what about us? You know, you're looking at these veiled women over here and the burqas and everything else, and that has nothing to do with Indonesian culture, African culture, French culture, whatever it may be. What we're looking at is a cultural difference that happens to be in the Middle East that preceded Islam. It's just the way people behaved and looked and acted towards women back then. The irony is, prior to Islam, women had virtually zero rights. During Jesus' time, Moses' time period on, zero. They were a commodity. Islam came about and actually gave them rights. The right to an education, the right to divorce, the right to be able to marry whom they wish, the right to their own income, the right to vote. When did we win that here?
Not long ago.
20s or something? So all of these were given to mankind, to women, saying, no, you must treat them equally. Given through the Islamic faith. And we've since adapted it, obviously, to our social environments and our social laws and our social norms. But it began with Islam. So what we're looking at, these aberrancies, some of them are misogynistic, definitely. I mean, where in the Quran does it say a woman can't drive? You know, Saudi Arabia, you can't drive. Some women have certain rights and men have certain rights above women in some of these countries as well. And the fact is they're just treated without regard to their education, etc. That's completely contrary to Islamic teaching. But these guys are Muslims. Yep, they don't know their own religion. Because why? They're run by men. It's a male-dominated society. It's fact. It's just the way it is. Here today, our problems stem from men ruling. Look at the Senate for these.
For us saying we're all equal, that's clear not that is the case.
Ask anyone.
Ask anyone.
So, however, there are differentiations. We have to, Islamic does not go to the point of saying, hey, you're completely equal. One is a woman with biological differences and a man is completely his biological differences and social roles as a result of it. So some of the laws that are given within the Islamic faith make note of those differences and mandates the man, for example, the woman, there's one that's often misquoted is that inheritance, a woman gets half of what the girls get half of what the males get. Seems completely unfair. But when you look at the context, the man is responsible for taking care of the woman for the rest of her life, financially, health-wise and everything else. So the burden is on him. That's why they give him a bit more to make sure that he takes care of all the rest of the females. It's just a social responsibility. So they go to courts, they get the divorce, or they get, the inheritances, and does the guy actually fulfill the promise? Many times they don't. They only concentrate on that very first aspect. So this is a political, social problem, not one to do with the religion itself. All of these things, it's amazing. You look into them, and suddenly you go, that's the reason why. And to this day, believe it or not, even in myself, when I was growing up, let's say college age on, religiously, there were aspects of the Quran that it's graded differently to me. It didn't feel right. I'm reading the entire thing, and this seems completely out of character, but I have to understand, this is Nashwan, growing up in America, with a certain mentality and a certain understanding, so I'm looking at it through those eyes. There were things that over time became suddenly clear to me, just because, it was explained. To this day, there are still some that I don't understand, but I don't throw out my entire faith. I just put it aside. Someday, God willing, I'll mature enough to be able to understand it, I hope. So I think if we all did that, we would be less inclined to say, look, what a terrible woman, look at the way you treat women. This is an example of Islam. We have to be careful of doing that kind of thing. Yes, one. Sorry, you had one here. If you don't mind, I'll go to her and then I'll go to you. I apologize, because I know you had your hand up.
Muslims believe in hell?
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately or not, it's similar to the biblical understanding of fire and brimstone and pain and suffering. But again, the Sufistic notion has a different idea. So it depends on which Muslim you speak to, which scholar you speak to. it's one of those areas that's difficult for anyone, maybe within any faith, to understand the loving God and then try to equate that with this punishment. The good news is, there was a verse I wish I brought with me. Okay, I did. There's a hadith, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, and don't quote me on this, it says, someone asked him about who gets into heaven. And he said, anybody who believes in the oneness of God will get into heaven. That's good news. So he said, shall I go give this good news to everybody? He goes, no, don't tell them. Because I'm afraid they're going to bank on this and not do anything else good. So the reality is all of us will make it to heaven at some point or another. We think. Not everyone maybe, but the only ones who are not forgiven, the only ones within the Quran that are stated that are not forgiven are those individuals that read, accept it to be true, and then work against it. Those are who are considered, infidel is a word that's thrown about now that is not an Arabic term, is not a Muslim term, it's coined by a pope long ago. But a non-believer, or a dhimmi they would call it. And I may be equating two words together, I apologize. A non-believer. And, no, dhimmi is, no, sorry. The name escapes me at this moment. They're what the individuals they're talking about are individuals, like I just stated. They actually believed, this is true, this is valid, this is the word of God, but I'm going to work against you. Not the ones who go, I'm not sure, or I've got my own religion, this doesn't make sense. We're not talking about those people. Those people are accepted, and as we said, we've seen in history, accepted as part of the community. It's the ones that are fighting against you that know that it's correct. Even if they fight against you and think you're wrong, that's fine. What was it? Another verse. All these things are popping into my mind, sorry. There was a man who fought against the prophet his entire life trying to kill him. And the man passed away. And the ummah, the community, was calling him a filthy name, an adjective that was a filthy name. The prophet asked them, the man died, and the young son came to the prophet to seek him out, and they told him, this guy's coming to come see you. What are you going to do? So he said, bring him to me. And this young boy, he said, my father died. He says, I know. And he could clearly tell the boy was distraught. This is the guy's father. So he asked the community before they came, I want none of you to use this word, this term about this man ever again. And then he said, I know my father was against you and he fought against you. What should I do? The prophet took his shirt off and he gave it to him. He said, wear this in remembrance of your father. I'm sorry. Sometimes it just hits you. I don't know where. It's a Gandhi-esque way of thinking, that he gave one of his worst enemies his son, because out of respect as he lost his father. It's the notion that he lost his father, not that we lost an enemy of ours as a community. So, sorry. Sorry about that. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, I missed you.
So kind of back to your other things you were talking about, where does Sharia law
Come into play.
well, where did it come from? I mean, is it from the Quran?
It's comprised of several things, the Quran being one of them, and the Hadith, the teachings of the Prophet himself, and the Sirah, which is the jurisprudence or the scholarly works that the scholars have produced after the Prophet. All those combined comprise the Sharia. The Sharia in Arabic is a word that just means the path to water. And it's very similar to the canonical laws of Christendom. You follow them, they teach you how to pray, how to worship, etc., etc., etc. So to say a Muslim, you cannot follow Sharia law, it's impossible. What we think of in the West as Sharia law is what we're witnessing. They're bringing Sharia law to the United States. States are passing laws that we can't have Sharia law in the United States. I mean, this is the mentality of what we're thinking. It's impossible to bring Sharia law in the United States. Muslims are mandated to follow the laws of the non-Muslim majority governments. It's mandated in the Quran that you do this.
Christian.
Yeah, so it's, whether you like it or not, you're mandated. This is the majority rule. You try to change it as best you can. But Sharia law really encompasses all of these things. How I pray, how you, inheritance laws, all of the various details of the religion are within it. And also the interpretations of it by the scholars. Because not everything is within the Quran and Hadith. So our fear of it comes from being the fires being stoked by individuals that misunderstand it and or have an agenda against Muslims in the United States. So there is no fear. The Constitution is in perfect harmony with Islam. The right to pursue property and
It seems like the fear comes from sort of like with the wasabi interpretations, but Wahhabi, but
Wasabi.
yes. Good Japanese. But it's no different than the Hebrew scriptures that we go back to. If you go back to our own Hebrew scriptures, it says, you know, it's an anathema. If you mix cotton and wool, if you cook two different things in a pot, and the penalty is death for a lot of those things. And so people look at interpretations of the Quran that are expressed in those ways and claim that, well, that's no more their law than Hebrew scriptures are our law at this point.
I'm a little confused, because this is all new to me.
Sure.
Religious teachings is all new. I was raised as an atheist. And I think it's deityism. My mother said, oh yeah, something created us but then left us. So that's her stuff. And I'm trying to get away from my upbringing and trying to find my own idea. But I don't understand. So the Jews believe in the Quran, but you're talking about so is Islam and the Jew is that all is that the first book that you believe in? I don't even know the Bible. I know
That's
nothing.
okay. No, you won't believe how common this sentiment is. I mean, that's the reality of even those that profess to be within the faith know really very little about the faith. I mean, we just kind of attend church. I'm not this congregation exception, complete exception. But many congregations I go to, I know that within the pews there, my wife is Catholic, so I'll go to church with her on occasion. And I know that each Catholic sitting in the pews there has a different notion of Catholicism than the person next to them. Is the wafer and the wine actually the blood and flesh of Jesus? You know, you start taking a poll and go, no, it's representative. But your Bible says it actually is. You know, the Pope says it actually is. And which one do you believe? So we each have a different notion of what our religions teach. So what does Islam understand? What are the differences between these faiths? Understand that we have had, over time, revelations to humanity. And Islam accepts and recognizes it, as long as we can corroborate it with what evidence we've got today. I mean, somebody can come along and say, the original religion was the ABC religion, and this is what it taught. And it's the same God. And he taught this. Well, how am I supposed to know if he's telling the truth or not? The only thing I've got are the Gospel and the Torah, these two holy books, along with the Quran, to kind of corroborate. Does it sound reasonable? Does it sound true or not? And then it's really up to me whether I wish to believe or not to believe. So, long ago we had Moses bringing about the Judaic faith through the Torah, okay? Muslims accept the original form of the Torah. Time passes. Jesus, peace be upon him, comes along and says, you guys have kind of lost your way, you need to come back, the Pharisees are behaving badly, and you need to I'm now the one who was promised, I am the Messiah that's coming to reform some of the laws, etc. Well, he was rejected by the Jews, but he brought about the Injil, the teachings of Jesus and the teachings of Christianity. Not necessarily in their form today, but again, part of the Islamic faith now, because it's from the same God. The Jews don't accept it, but the Christians obviously do accept the Old Testament, right? So time passes again. Human beings. Different interpretations, correct. Time passes, Muhammad, peace be upon him, comes to a completely different people, remembering that, hey, this is what I gave you before in the Torah, this is what I gave you in the Injil, in the Bible, and I'm giving you now the next chapter to confirm what came before, but this is the final chapter. So Muslims believe in all that came prior to it, in their original form. Okay, you'll find these differences, obviously, as we spoke about before, but the vast majority of religions, the essence of it, the orange juice of it, is exactly the same. So that's the differences between them. Usually human beings, we don't like to believe in what comes after us, we'll accept what comes before us because of our egos, unfortunately. And again, it's an acknowledgement by God that these are established religions, and it's okay, follow it. Just follow it. That's all he's asking, follow it.
So what's the book you read?
Personally? I try to read all of them, bits and pieces from all of them, but as a Muslim, the Quran is the ultimate guidance. I should have brought one with me, I didn't, I'm sorry, but the Quran is it. And again, it's not an easy read. It's not like you open up a book, you know.
Mine was not easy.
Well,
Read
and
through it.
then they all have interpretations.
Correct.
You know, and who interprets it to put it into English after it's come from, you know, Arabic in terms of Quran, but now it's in English, but it's different in, just like the Bible is
The
different.
Quran is only in Arabic. The language of Arabic is a very poetic, very romantic language. And one word can mean an entire sentence in the English language. You've known that in any of you know translations of any language. And so the one I read in English, because that's my dominant language, is not exactly the same. It doesn't resonate exactly as if you knew Arabic in the original form, and it resonates with an Arab very differently than it does a non-Arab speaking
Same
person.
as Hebrew going to Greek,
Right.
going to English.
Or
And
from
the
Aramaic
language-
from that.
Right, and the language brings all of its own worldviews to it and keeps changing every time you change the
But the
language.
bottom line is, it doesn't matter which is truth or which is not. For every human being, how are we supposed to know again? I'm trying to bring myself down to the point if I had no parents to guide me in any way, no scholars to teach me anything, what am I supposed to do? What would I give, what information would I tell a newborn, you know, that comes of age, and he says, what religion am I? Oh, it's whatever you choose, whatever makes sense to you, because again of that heart light, that God light that we have, it will guide you. Seek knowledge from cradle to grave, even if you have to go to China to get it, is what the prophet said. I mean, it's a decree that mandates us to educate ourselves. We're not going to know anything until we figure it out. That's why we go to school. Religion is no different. And religion actually should precede anything else. We have to survive, obviously, so we study everything else. But religion is what's going to give meaning to everything else that we have. We just got to study, and it doesn't take a lot. It really is not a big deal. It sounds like, oh my God, I got to take classes, and I got to talk to scholars. It's not that big a deal. Because now we have books that are written by individuals that kind of summarize things for us. And if you read the Quran, just even on a surface level, some of these verses that I've quoted you, it's pretty obvious where we're trying to go. And if people just behave according to that surface level, I think we would all be just fine. And if you want to get deeper, there are obviously, you peel back the layers of the onion. But I commend you, I mean, to go against our paternal, you know, what our parents taught us is difficult. I mean, I'm going to relate a personal story to you, and my daughter's here to probably affirm or deny this, but when I got married to my wife, again, she's Catholic, we knew we were of different faiths, and she's pretty devout Catholic. That's actually one of the reasons I married her, is because I knew she was a spiritual woman. So we decided that when we would have kids, we would raise them with both faiths, so that they would understand and be able to choose on their own. Well, the ego side of it, the Nashwan would say, aha, you know what, Christianity, Islam, slam dunk, they're going to become Muslims. Just so clear, you know, superior religion. So we took her to church, we had Sunday classes, and we tried to be as generic about it as possible, because really, if you teach religion, it's really about the principles of treating each other with kindness, you know, charity, love, etc., etc. And that's really what we emphasize. So in the end, if you ask any of my kids, what religion are you? They would probably say we are undecided. We are agnostic in essence, maybe even, which is an amazing thing to come from you know, you wouldn't think a guy like me would end up having this happen, or a woman like my wife. But in a way, it's beautiful. I mean, it kind of hurts the ego a little bit, but their ability now to look at religion from a human, an adult level, as you now. You look at it completely different than a child who just takes it and wrote, you know, okay, Mom, you know, that's what, who are you? Well, I think we grew up Catholic, or I think we grew up Protestant, because we attended that church, so that must be what I am. So you don't pass religion on, you know, like your dresser, for Pete's sake, to your kids. You nurture them to a point where they can think on their own. And God willing, they'll be able to find whatever path they find. If it's your path, if it's someone else's path, as long as they're seeking. Because I know that's what God asked me to. My responsibility is to teach, and it's not up to me whether they succeed in life or not. I've given them all I can give them, and they need to now find their own pathway. There are Muslims that would look at me and say, you failed. And, you know, maybe I did. But I now look at it differently. I'm looking at some of the other kids that I've seen in the community who have now become adults, and they're really dogmatic. They're just, you've got to believe this. They know it, and God bless everyone. they have faith within them and they're practicing it in the way they know, but I don't think they're as open-minded as an individual who is not brought up in any particular one who looks at it with a completely neutral light. I have a friend who's an atheist, and I love talking to him because you guys are blank slates. I could bounce ideas off of you without prejudice.
Right.
You're looking at it from like a baby, and you give me what you truly believe. Not because you want to tell me something, or not because you believed something else before, but this sounds crazy, or this, yeah, it makes sense. That's why I really love having him as a friend of mine. Sorry, I keep yakking away. Your questions are what's most important to me, so please keep asking. I did talk about the beliefs. We talked about the holy books. Belief in heaven and hell, of course, are there. But again, with regard to heaven and hell, everyone has a history behind them. And we have what we're told, angels on either shoulder. That's why when Muslims are praying, they look to the right, they look to the left, greeting both angels. One's writing the good things down, the other guy's writing the bad things down. So when we are all brought back before the one that created us, we are going to be judged according to what we've been given. With the knowledge we've been given, as well as the wealth that we have been given. And if we've done more good than bad, then the reward of heaven is there. If we've done more bad than good, then a certain period of necessary adjustment needs to happen. I say that nice enough. In order for you, I mean, look at our laws in the United States. You don't just commit a crime and say, oh, okay, go on. There's a certain period of adjustment. Theoretically, we have a correctional institution, which is, it's not working. But that's the theory, is that you make a mistake, you work to the point where you acknowledge you made the mistake, and then you can move forward.
I like the distinction. It says you're not punished for your sins, you're punished by them.
Yeah.
So if you're not acting in alignment, then stuff happens.
Yeah.
Until you get that it's better to be one with and practice golden rule, basically.
This is not Islamic, but this is, again, my point of view of what hell may be like, a vision of what hell would be. I'm trying to imagine, people that have wronged individuals horribly, and we all know who they may be. Not only one life, but millions of lives, and then their generations to come after that. Hell for me would be to live in a state of understanding and feeling of what I have done. I would rather burn than have to go through that to get through every single individual. Can you imagine what the pain? I mean, I almost cried just quoting something nice. Can you imagine how I'm going to cry when I'm going to see a child that didn't have his dad anymore, or is an orphan now as a result of what I did? I mean, and then his kid and that kid, and it's ad nauseum. You're going to find the repercussions of one single bad deed, let alone the bombing of someone or a country to decimate them and do what we say we're doing because we're trying to spread freedom or democracy somewhere. That's my idea of what hell may be. And we have no idea. We just try to avoid the notion and work towards doing good. And the good news is that God doesn't expect us to succeed. He just expects us to try, is what I am told. So I take heart in that, and I feel a lot better about that.
So you call him God, not Allah? Who calls him Allah?
All Muslims do. It's just the Arabic word for God.
Okay.
So if I was Spanish, I would say Dios.
Okay.
It's adios, goodbye. I'll go with God. It just happens to be the Arabic word for it. So even Christians living in an Arabic world would say Allah.
Okay.
Yeah, they would greet each other saying Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you, because they're Arabs. They speak the same language.
But a lot of people don't get the fact that it's
Yeah,
the same.
and they want to divide us. Oh, they're God of Allah, and I've heard this in print read it in print by generals, by politicians. No, their God is different than our God. And the followers will believe them. Again, on these radio stations, you won't believe what I hear. No wonder we're fighting against them. No wonder we're at battle with each other.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Sorry I yacked.
No.
It's great.
Thank you.
So there's going to be more on the 30th. Are people still interested? Do you have more questions? And on the 30th, Nashwan was willing to come back and do second hour again, so that we don't go until 4 o'clock today.
Yeah. And if you wish to narrow the focus into any particular area, women's rights, whatever it may be, that you want me to highlight, please let me know.
And I'll make announcements next week about that too.
I'm just talking, you said that you would grade your
Oh, yes. If you would like, I can still do that.
That would
Sorry.
be helpful
Okay.
for my understanding.
I have a show and tell prayer run that I take to schools with me. And you don't have to have this. You can go pray on the dirt outside or the grass outside, but I'll just use it for this purpose now. And I'll face this direction. Shoes.
What direction is that?
And for now, it doesn't matter. But in reality, it would be towards Mecca, towards the Kaaba, which is the house that Abraham built as the first church of worshiping God. Again, we're not worshiping the building, it's just a hollow, empty building right now, but all Muslims in the world are focused towards it. The whole notion is that the idea is to pray at the same time, saying the exact same thing towards the same direction to kind of create uniformity. Because as we've seen with Christendom, you know, suddenly one guy's got a different notion and we start to diverge, and suddenly I've got 1,000 sects of the religion following completely different things. So he knows human beings and he wants to keep them focused for that reason. So I'm going to say it in Arabic, and this is kind of the beginning of the prayer. It's really quite short. I'll say it in Arabic, but then I'll translate it in English. Listen to the English, and in a way, see if it resonates with whatever beliefs you may have come to accept in your lives. There's a ritualistic washing beforehand. Again, it's ritualistic. If you don't have water, you can use dirt. It's just the idea that I'm preparing myself to talk to what I believe is the one that made the blood, the veins, and everything within me and all of it. And again, I'm taking a break to kind of raise my brain from here to up here. And I'm saying, Allahu Akbar, God is great. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the kind and the merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Thanks be to God, the creator of the universe. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the kind, the merciful. Maliki yawmiddin. Yours is the day of judgment. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. To you we worship, and to you we seek guidance. Ihdina ila sirata mustaqim. Guide us to the straight path. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. Path of those to whom you have been merciful. Ghayr al-maghdubi alayhim wa al-dhalin. Not to the path of those whom you have let go astray. Ameen. Amen. Then, congregation or individually, we all would bow. The act of bowing again is a sign of respect and reverence. And we'd say 3 times, Subhana Rabbi Alim, Subhana Rabbi Alim, Subhana Rabbi Alim. Glory be to God, the creator of the universe. Sami Allahu liman hamidah rabbuhu. God listens to those who call upon him. Allahu Akbar, God is great. And then we'll go all the way to the ground, bowing, and saying 3 times, Subhana Rabbi La'la, Subhana Rabbi La'la, Subhana Rabbi La'la. Glory be to God in the highest. Allahu Akbar, God is great. And again, glory be to God in the highest, glory be to God in the highest, glory be to God in the highest. Allahu Akbar. And at this point, we also will repeat any verse from the Quran that we choose as part of the prayer. And there's a little bit more beyond that, but that in essence is the gist of the prayer. I will repeat what I just did 2, 3, or 4 times, depending on what time of day it is of the 5 times. And it's meant to not be a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal in the sense of an individual basis, but not take a lot of time. So you can take some time off of work, just kind of go to the corner, do a prayer, the school, wherever it may be, just to kind of give you a break. Resonate with who you are as a human being in life and your fellow man. And if we all did this, it's very hard to pray 5 times a day, and yet do something negative towards your neighbor, to a coworker, etc. Suddenly your body's going to say, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
I can't, I'll be a hypocrite. So I would really wish for our leaders and national leaders to pray 5 times a day. I don't care what religion you are, just pray 5 times a day. Because then when you come back to pass legislation, you're going to be thinking of what's for the greater good for just the small segment. So that's what it is.
Do women do this? Because I've always seen men do it.
Yeah, because within the congregation you'll see the separation, but women are doing it as well, but maybe just in side by side or behind them or on a completely different level, above or below, because of the separation. But women pray just as much as men. This religion is meant for men and women, as all human beings, all human beings, and it's required to do. The things that Muslims are required to do. Declaration of faith. Number 1, you've studied enough that you say this faith makes sense to me. I'm going to declare that I declare that there is no God but God, and that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Why Muhammad? Because they were speaking at the time. He was the prophet at the time. But in reality, we accept all of the prophet's teachings. Then we're asked to do prayers 5 times a day, as I said. Again, to elevate the mind. And then zakat, which is charity. You're mandated to give this tax, in essence, of 2.5% of what you're able to save throughout the year. After you've paid your mortgage and healthcare and everything else, and food and whatever you need, whatever's left over, whatever you're able to save, you take 2.5% of that and give it to the needy. It's meant just completely for the needy. to create balance. I'm blessed to live in Monterey, I've got a job and I'm fine, but there are others that don't have that blessing. And if we all did this, the World Bank said if everybody gave 2.5%, there would be no poverty. It just wouldn't exist. Because it really doesn't seem like a whole lot from an individual. But when you do it collectively and over time, and don't create problems that create poverty in the first place, then it will take care of itself. So that, along with Som, which is fasting, during the month of Ramadan, which we just finished, Muslims are asked to abstain from food and drink and marital relations for the entire month from sunrise to sunset. And the whole notion is that this is kind of a respite during this month, kind of like a prayer, but for the whole month for the individual to reflect upon who they are in position to life and God.
And that's June?
No, it actually moves. We follow the lunar calendar. So it happened in June this year, yeah.
Okay.
For me, this was like the longest time since I was back in college. So I've done the whole full circle now. It shifts 10 days every day because the moon travels in a different cycle than the sun, and it's constantly shifting 10 days every year.
It also makes it fair to everyone so that you don't live in one part of the world where the day is long and high, and so now everybody gets to have
It's summer in Alaska, it doesn't go down, what am I going to eat? So you can then get to pick a particular time, say, okay, we're all going to break fast at 7 o'clock. But this year it was 8:30, I think, for us, so it was a long day. But it's an incredible, if you do it right, it's an incredible experience. I think I've maybe even spoke here about that once. That it's emotional, it's physical, it's a time for people to study, it's a time for people to gather together at the end of the day, families and friends, and break fast together. We're not starving for the whole month now, remember, to sunset. I saw your face going, oh my God.
every day.
As soon as you get up, you stop. And then you don't eat until the sun goes down.
Okay.
That's it. And it's taxing for the first week maybe, but you will not believe what you start to feel, how dependent we are on food, how understanding, empathizing now with those that have to go the next day and the next day and the next day without and you get irritable, our brains only function on sugar, and we need it. So to not have that suddenly, you start to get foggy and you don't want to do anything, and around 3 o'clock I just want to crash. But after time, your body adjusts, and you suddenly realize, I don't need that much anymore. And I now have the opportunity to reflect upon the teachings of my faith. So we're asked to do that fast. And then pilgrimage, once in a lifetime if you can. The reason why we go to church, you guys go to church, you come here because of camaraderie. You could do this at home, you could study on your own, you could worship on your own, but we come because we want to be with each other. It feels good to have to be able to practice with one another. So going to Hajj, going to pilgrimage to Mecca, the whole Muslim community throughout the world will go if you have permission to go, because you have to apply. So about 2 to 2.5 million people descend on Mecca, and it's like going to church on a global level. You find people from every nationality, every language possible around you. And you don't have any idea if this guy is a king or if he's a pauper praying next to you. I wish I had the slide up there to show you a prayer around Kaaba. It's a huge mosque. It's like 3 levels high. And everybody dons kind of like toga outfit. They dress very in simple white cloth. And men and women are now equal, rich and poor are now equal. We're going before God in the eyes and the way that He made you. The only differentiation between ourselves becomes our character, what we have done in life. That's how you differentiate at that point. So that's, if you can afford it, if you're healthy enough, if you're wealthy enough, you should go. I have not gone, and I'm going to confess something that I've never confessed to anybody yet. I don't think I'm going to be going in any time in the near future, for this reason. I abhor what the Saudi government is doing in Yemen, because they are the guardians of the Kaaba, the guardians of the holy place. They happen to just be the guardians because that happens to be the nation in which the Kaaba is in Mecca. And the way that they behave now, or are behaving worldwide, is in such contradiction to the teachings of the religion, and such an aberration, and so disgusting to me, that I cannot support them in any way, even though I have to pull myself away from a mandate from the religion to send a message. And I'm going to actually pen something to the Muslim world and say, this is just my feeling, but if we all did not go, they're not going to go broke. Clearly, Saudi Arabia is a very wealthy nation, but it's going to send a huge message that the Muslim world is not supporting what you are doing. And you are no longer representing the Muslim nation as guardians of this holy site. Until such change happens, I can't see how I can do it. I may change my mind, or maybe a scholar will tell me, no, you're wrong, you're looking at it incorrectly, but for right now, that's how I'm.
That's how I feel about the politics right now. So can I stop paying my taxes? I'm just gonna like write the IRS and say, no, I'm really not okay with it.
A lot of people agree.
I know. Oh, I know.
They don't. And what they do actually is they figure the percentage of our taxes that go towards the military spending, for example, and they take that amount of money and they give it to a charity. And they tell the government on their 1040, I've taken this, and I've paid it, but I've given it to, Planned Parenthood or something. Okay?
Yes.
And they're going to be excited to get that. But some people seem to get away with it. I've never really investigated. So those are the basic 5 pillars of the religion, what Muslims have to do. I've discussed what they believe, and we've discussed what they do, and you could kind of make a judgment as to how similar or how...
So there's going to be no repercussion for you to not go to Mecca? Or is there, I mean, in the long run?
It's between me...
Right, and...
I've got to make a choice on my own,
Right.
I don't know that I'm steadfast in that yet. I don't know if it's going to be something that I'll stick with, but that's how I feel right now.
Right.
I'm watching the news constantly, and I'm so disappointed in the Muslim world for not condemning this more. There are many organizations that are condemning it, but I think the Muslim world in general should stand up and rise. The problem is, going back to the Sunni Shia thing, it's now looked upon as, there's a divide. The Saudi Arabia is very much against Iran, and Iran is predominantly Shia. And they're believing that they're moving into Yemen in order to proliferate the Shia faith within the Muslim communities there. That is by no means a reason to do what they are doing. So that's the reason. It's a politically motivated war. But to act in such a way where you kill innocents because of that reason, it's completely against nature. As I told you, for 10 years they were persecuted in Mecca, killed, and God said, no, don't touch them. They're going to come around, don't worry, they couldn't touch them. They didn't. They didn't come around. They had to leave and eventually come back. But when they came back, they were in such numbers, they walked in, they stood outside the gates. I can tell you this quick story. They stood outside the gates of Mecca and wanted to come in and wanted to invade. This is an entire army of people. I think there were 100,000 of them. And they said, these are our 10 demands. We demand this from the pagan Meccan community, that you give us this. They came back with one. They said, well, we'll give you one of these. The prophet said, okay, I'll take one. Because he knew, I'm in the door. I'm in the door now, and eventually our beliefs will be accepted and understood, and we'll become one community. And in fact, that's what happened. So not an arrow was shot, or no blood was shed in that time. It's an amazing period of history. And that's when he reached out to the Christian community to say, look, we're all one, and no need to worry. History just tells us amazing things. We just look at it. We've got amazing examples. Anyway, I've stayed way too long. I apologize. I promise to come back.